Richa Rudola, thank you for coming on the show. I'm very excited to have you. And I want to start out just by asking how you started out. Did you go to school for filmmaking, acting? What did you do? Because some people start from they went to school for science and they end up doing whatever. And then, what are you working on now?
Thanks, Shari. And first of all, thank you for having me. One of the scenarios that you described applied to me. I went to school for science. I still have a part-time job where I utilize those skill sets. But I went to school to study statistics. I came to the US, in fact, to complete a master's degree in statistics. So filmmaking came to me over a long and organic way. And I'll just say that I no longer call myself a statistician turned filmmaker, which is how I often introduced myself. I have now come to realize I am just a storyteller who has a background in, the sort of left brain world of like STEM education.
One thing I wanted to ask you then, okay, so do you find anything from your statistician life that you trained in, you learned about, you studied for years, applies to the film world? Like, do the skills cross over?
Great question. I think not only do skills cross over, I think content sometimes also crosses over. And I think it depends on if you like to see those connections and if you want to work on those applying those connections to storytelling. But just to sort of explain what I was saying earlier, I don't call myself a statistician turned filmmaker anymore because I'm not even a self-taught filmmaker, because I think I have over 10 years, I've taken a lot of courses. I genuinely care about the art of storytelling, the art of screenwriting, and I've tried to study that. So I guess I'm self-taught, but I've also done that I haven't done that just through YouTube tutorials. I've taken courses and, many courses, and I keep refreshing them over and over again. So to me, I find that I had to sort of take some time after several years of being on the shadows, so to speak, when I started to embrace that, no, I am in fact a storyteller. I'm not just trying to be one. And I started to make work. And even after that, it took some time to remove this coat of, I come from another world. I'm not really, a bona fide filmmaker, if you will. I no longer sort of worry about those labels. But when I think about the kind of stories I most gravitate towards and the ones that I like to make, like looking back at my body of work, sort of looking for that thread, which can be hard to do sometimes. When you're doing it for yourself, it can be, I found it to be harder than if somebody else is absorbing your work. They can sometimes see that more easily. I found that I do like to I like psychological concepts and sociological themes that can apply even in a science setting or a just life setting. And to the extent that I can tell a story where it might appear to be on a scientific level at the top, but really at the core, the thing that connects it is what we all enjoy at the core of all storytelling, sort of the aspects of human condition. So in that way, I think you can, there's lots of cool and interesting opportunities, I think, to play with scientific concepts and to incorporate that into the kind of storytelling that you would just expect to see in a film or a TV show or something.
Can you give me an example, like some of your work? Can you talk about some of your work and what you've made, what you're making now, and maybe if you can tie it back to that, but even if you don't, I'm curious to know what you're up to.
Yeah. So actually the 3-4 short films that I've made, that I wrote and directed, and some that I just directed, don't necessarily deal with science, but they do deal with the kind of content that I like to make, which is stories that make you think and feel, that open up a different perspective, hopefully. But I am working on a much bigger project that has science at its core. And I'll talk a little bit about my short films. I made my very first film, which actually my goal with making that film was to prove to myself that I could make a film. So that was sort of, it might seem like a small goal to others, but to me, it was a monumental goal. And it was a story that I'd written in a lab about exploring what a day in a life of a brown vampire might look like. Because I was taking the screenwriting course, and I was asked to just follow the fun, what it is that I would find inspiring to write about. And I've always liked horror films. And I noticed, because I just watched this beautiful film by Jim Jarmusch called Only Lovers Left Alive. I thought it was beautiful. And I couldn't help but notice that not just that film, but every other vampire film I've seen just had white people in them. So I thought, what if there was a brown vampire film? So I started to write about that. And then what came out of it was that he encounters a sex trafficking survivor. So it became the story of that little girl, but it's really a film about the horrors of sex trafficking. To me, that is my version of a horror film. So it's a genre bender, in my opinion, but it's called Fresh Blood. In Hindi, it's called Taza Khoon. And it's on Amazon Prime. That film did so well on the festival circuit. I was shocked. Like, I did not, for me, I just wanted to make a film. So anyway, that's a film I'm very proud of, because to me, it is the kind of way that, you know, the expression of certain hard truths in society, sort of being able to distill it in a storytelling form that is more accessible to people, that it looks like it's about one thing, but ends up being about something else, and can hopefully open up perspectives to the things. So that's a film I'm very proud of. Made it in 2016, 17. And then since then, I've made another short film that I'm very proud of. It's a very personal, all the films that I make end up being personal, which is true for a lot of storytellers. You know, you put something of yourself in it. I grew up in India as a young girl. I mean, I left India only when I was 20. So growing up in North India, and sort of not always feeling safe in my body was a big part of my upbringing, whether it was, you know, it was just a product of not feeling safe in that sort of society when I'm in public. And to me, that type of repressed trauma has manifested in my work in some way. So sex trafficking is a very extreme version of that. But my second film, The Seal, which stars a well-known Bollywood actress called Shahana Goswami, is about the battle between the mind and the body in coping with the after effects of trauma. So it's less about the trauma itself and more about, like, when it's happened, how are you coping with it? And the body remembers things that the mind might want to forget. So then how do you, it's almost like a battle with self. So it's a psychological thriller, which I'm very proud of the team that made it, as well as the film itself. And that came out in 2019. Then I also directed a poetry film called Indian American that was sponsored by the Visible Poetry Project. Written by Cypria Veloth, a beautiful poem about just, you know, feeling otherized when your name is mispronounced in a culture where you don't often see people that look like you. So it's told through the eyes of a young girl who then becomes a teenager and a young woman. So I really enjoyed being able to visually depict that beautiful film, a beautiful poem. And then I made another pandemic short film during the pandemic, which is, I think, on the festival circuit now, with 4 other amazing filmmakers. It's called Momentary. Everyone has made a 1-minute film, and then it's a 5-minute film that kind of comes together as an anthology. And I'm currently working on what I call my magnum opus, which is science-based. It's about a neuroscience student at IIT in India, which is Indian Institute of Technology, who goes to MIT in the US, in Boston, to study dreams. She's basically literally a dream researcher who is also struggling with her own dreams and trying to figure out, you know, why her father died. And it's a story about science and astrology, and a real science and a quote unquote pseudoscience. Yeah, and diving into the world of research in that one, while trying to tell a layered story, learning so much more about myself and about these worlds is really, really interesting. And I'm working with 2 really incredible producers on that. So we're hoping to sort of bring it to life sometime soon. And then there's this short film that I'm currently in the process of hoping to make this year, inspired by my journey of being a mother.